Hey everyone, good morning. I hope you're having a great day. Well, today's video was inspired by my morning walk in the garden when I was just out here with my coffee and Grace at about 5:30, and we saw a bunch of monarchs feasting on the Joe Pye weed. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to make a bouquet of all native flowers and foliage and just put it out here for the pollinators to enjoy? Some of you might know that our small-scale cut flower farm is also a certified pollinator-friendly garden. So I thought today I could chat with you a little bit more about why I'm passionate about growing native plants, why I garden organically, and my hope too is to just kind of set this bouquet out in the garden and enjoy the show of the butterflies, the bees, and whatever other kind of life might want to enjoy these flowers. So let me first talk you through some really great cut flowers that are also native plants here in the Mid-Atlantic region of North America. So let me just start off by showing you what I have in my bucket, and then we can talk about some more native plants that make great cut flowers. But the ones that are blooming this time of year in early August for me in southern PA are the Rudbeckia, the Joe Pye weed, oh look, we have a bee right there, yarrow, ironweed, echinacea, and some of the echinacea I went ahead and removed the petals if they didn't look so good, yarrow. And then for the foliage, I'm really loving this Kodiak Black Durvella. It's holding up forever in water, like 2 weeks, and I used it out of water and it was fine also. So many positives there. And also we have Blazing Star, and I love Blazing Star because my grandma grew a lot of it. Now, if it was earlier on in the season, I could also use some of these other native plants. I could use Bleeding Heart, Solomon Seal, then as kind of the season progresses, Baptisia, Penstemon, Mountain Mint. Then we move on to what we're looking at now, and then finally we'll finish off the season with things like goldenrod and asters. Those all make wonderful cut flowers. And I think too, you know, we're gonna pair these all together today and we're gonna get kind of a prairie feel. But say you just use one or two of these elements with other, with other things like your dahlias and your zinnias. Really, some coneflower heads in an arrangement bring a lot of interest, and maybe a customer will say, wow, what is that? That's really interesting. And then it kind of opens up this wonderful conversation about native plants, Then maybe you can start talking to them about some great native plant books like Doug Tallamy's books, Bringing Nature Home and Nature's Best Hope. Even Monty Don's new book was so wonderful, The Complete Gardener. Monty's always been an organic gardener, and just kind of getting that information out there about native plants, native gardening, organic gardening in a positive way, because at least this is the way that I was taught. I think sometimes people tend to focus on the negative. They say, oh, you better rip out all your invasives, or that's an exotic plant, or you have too many exotics in your garden, too many, invasives. That might all be the case, but I think, and this is just my personal opinion, a better way to just reach people is to tell them instead why planting native plants is such a wonderful thing to do. It'll help them with insect problems. It'll help restore the natural ecosystem in their garden. It will bring life into their garden. It will actually help them be able to not have to use so many pesticides, and it's beautiful. I think we have to remind people that just because we're used to seeing it, that doesn't mean it's not beautiful. So with that being said, let's go ahead and make this arrangement. I want to go ahead and put it in the garden near the Joe Pye weed and just see what kind of activity we can get on it. And then I'll talk a little bit about our certification being a pollinator friendly garden. Well guys, it turned out even more beautiful than I anticipated, and just to think that we used only native flowers and foliage to create this beautiful bouquet. And my plan is just to leave this out here in the garden for my bee friends and hopefully butterfly friends to enjoy. So of course, depending on what part of the country you're located in, your native plants are going to be quite different from the ones you're seeing me here use in the Mid-Atlantic region. But a great resource is the Audubon website. You can go right to that website and put in your zip code, and then you can get a nice long list of all the plants that are native to your particular area. And then you can even narrow down the list. You can look at just perennials, grasses, evergreens, trees, really anything that you want. And you can even search the site to see if a certain plant that's in your garden is native or not. Another thing is just to check your particular university website. So where are your master gardeners housed? So here they're housed at Penn State. And you might even talk to me if you call the Penn State Master Gardeners. But there you can find a lot of lists on native plants, how to incorporate native plants into your garden. We've even done articles about native plants for boggy areas, for dry areas, native plants that bloom, spring, summer, fall, even winter. So check your university websites. Anything with a .edu or .gov is a really good place to get good quality information for native plants to your particular area. So now I thought we could talk a little bit about my pollinator friendly garden certification from Penn State, because I see a lot of questions about how do you go about certifying your garden and what does that really entail? Are there certain plants that you have to have in your garden, certain things you can or can't do? So I thought the easiest thing was to probably just print out an application. I had our garden certified back in, I think it was either 2017 or 18. I'd have to look at the paperwork. But I have to give a big thanks to the previous owner of this home, because he did a lot of the hard work for me, planting a lot of the trees that were necessary for certification. Of course, as you can probably guess, I brought in a lot of flowers and shrubs that were necessary and other elements. But thanks to him, I started the application process having enough native trees to fulfill what was on the list. So what Penn State at least is really going to want you to have is 5 things for pollinators. They want you to provide food, and we provide this with certain native trees, shrubs, and perennials that bloom all through the seasons. So not just summer blooming perennials, but spring, summer, and fall blooming perennials. They're also going to want you to plant these perennials in mass. It's really important to have varying different shapes for the insects as well. And the other thing they're going to want is for you to provide water. You can provide this in the form of a bird bath, maybe it's a stream, any kind of water source will do. Next, they're going to want you to provide shelter. This can be in the form of a wood pile, it can be a rock pile, it could just be some bare earth, or it could be man-made boxes. And then the 4th step is to basically either stop planting invasives or be committed to removing as many invasives as possible from your property. And of course, depending on what kind of property you inherited, that could be a really big chore or not a chore at all. Let's face it, we all have different properties that we're working with. I'll just use myself as an example. Tree of Heaven is always popping up all over my garden. I'm not sure where it's coming from. It's floating in here somehow from a neighboring garden, but I'm always taking it out as soon as I see it. So I'm just being committed to, when I see an invasive creep into our yard, sometimes even I'll have bush honeysuckle just pop up, there in the apple trees. There'll just be bush honeysuckle all of a sudden one year. So just being committed and aware of invasives and not planting them or removing them if necessary. And the last thing they're going to require you to do is to either avoid the use of pesticides altogether, which is what I choose to do. I don't use pesticides, be them synthetic or organic. Or if you're going to use pesticides, they're going to give you about, I think that's 5 things that they want to be sure of. Making sure you know exactly what bug you're spraying for, choosing the right pesticide for that bug and going organic always, being committed to not using systemic pesticides, which is a pesticide that kind of goes into the earth and the roots of the tree or shrub and then works its way up. That's what a systemic is. So there are a lot of things to consider if you are going to use pesticides, but in that case they would need to be organic. So that's really the main process, and you can see this is the application form here. I guess it's about 6 pages long, but it's really nice because you can kind of use this as a tool just to get started, because like under 4 different species of native trees and shrubs, then they list a whole bunch for you. So you can just sit here and say, okay, I have a serviceberry, I have a redbud, I have a black cherry, I have a choke cherry, I have a pin oak, I have a pussy willow, and you can kind of cross things off and just fill out the application as if you're ready to go, and then kind of see, all right, well, what am I missing? And then fill in from there as the days, months, years go on. And don't feel like it's a process that you have to rush. I mean, especially if you're starting with, just lawn, this may take many, many years. That's okay. I think it's just a great thing to work towards. Being a pollinator certified garden, some people are wildlife certified. I think there might even be a native plant certification for some states. So would you guys all do me a favor, because I can really only speak to Pennsylvania and this Penn State certification process. If you have a pollinator garden certification from another state or country, could you just give us some more information on how to go about doing that? I think that would really be really helpful to the whole group. We're all in different places, and the more we can help each other out, the better. Well, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me and talking a little bit about native plants and using them as cut flowers. And I think it's just so wonderful to embrace what God has given us to begin with. Don't you agree? There's so many wonderful flowers that are native to our area, and whether you're planting these natives to support pollinators or birds, or maybe you want to use them like me for cut flowers, I think there's just so many benefits to planting native plants. So until next time, happy gardening. Bye.